The third stage in the Reactive Shaper adds a saturation distortion to the sound and also feeds it back into the first stage. And as a result, you'll see it really fuzzes up the waveform. Here's our familiar sine wave again. I'll turn on the VCA on the Mother 32. You see the harmonic spectra for a sine wave. As I start fading up the effect of stage 3, you see some interesting things happen to the sine wave and also to the spectrum. You see the top of the waveform starts to flatten out. We start getting a few more high harmonics. The more we push it, now we have some real fuzziness along the top of that waveform, and you see some more gathering in the high harmonics. Keep pushing it further. There's always this threshold with the Reactive Shaper where you really start pushing down negative spikes and copies of the waveform. Those individual humps remind you of a thin pulse wave, and that's indeed what we see on screen, but with a lot of noise added in. And there's full saturation. And you see actually the fundamental harmonic has been suppressed a bit, and the second has been strengthened. As opposed to early on in the phase, there is quite a bit of harmonic change. Let's go ahead and try this with some other waveforms. I'm going to switch to the triangle wave. Pull this back down to be in the same octave. Increase stage 3. You see again some strange things happening to the mountain peak there. A little bit more fizziness appearing in the high harmonics. As we push harder, there's those twin peaks and that thin pulse wave sound. Again, square waves react strangely to wave folders. Either they don't react at all, or you get some really strange thin pulses created. Crank this up. You see where it just goes into noise there. Very unusual effect. Square waves tend to be a bit unpredictable through wave shapers. But if that's what you like, you probably have a little bit of fun by, say, taking in an LFO into stage 3 and adding in just a touch to get it to go in and out of that level of saturation. Slow it down, pitch it down, it's kind of an interesting drone. That's the interesting thing with any module in your system, particularly those that do distortion, feedback, or otherwise are unstable. Find those areas of instability and exploit them to create some interesting sounds. Anyway, pull that out for now. And then go for our final test, our favorite, the sawtooth wave. And again, crank that up. Flattens out the top there. And then eventually starts shooting downward spikes. Thin pulse sound, some movement in the harmonics. That interesting frying distortion that you get with stage 3. It's not a normal wave shaper. The feedback path and saturation creates this noise and instability. Okay, what can we do with that? I'm going to switch back to our sine wave for now. Do something a little bit different. Rather than the typical envelopes or LFOs we've been doing, let's go ahead and explore some of these areas of distortion, maybe using a controller like our mod wheel to have some fun with changing just how much distortion we're getting. I've connected the mod wheel to output 5 in the FH1. I'm going to pull the cable I had for the LFO going to stage 3. I'll use that later for something else. Take output 5, run it to stage 3 CV input. First dial in an initial amount I want with the mod wheel all the way down. There we go. I think I'm going to go just to the edge where I'm getting those spikes. Where was that? Right there. Okay, that's going to be my mod wheel off value. I'll turn the mod wheel up and increase the attenuator on the stage 3 CV input to get the depth of effect I want at full mod wheel. Right around there. Now my mod wheel gives me quite a bit of control over the timbre there. If I wanted to, I could start up a sequence or an arpeggio again. Fairly mellow sound there. Let's go ahead and mix in the Moog Zone oscillator. add a little bit of cutoff to the filter, and have some fun changing the mod wheel to make this more of a traveling effect. Not all wave shapers need to be drastic, destroy the world sort of effects. You can do subtle things like this. Now you might remember that I had an LFO programmed to these two sliders. This was the speed, this was the depth, and you can see output 8 over there on the FH1 as a result of that LFO. Pull down that depth for now, run another cable to something such as CV2, which gave us a nice pulse width modulation of sound. Pick an initial value, and then pick a good depth here for our maximum. So let's slow that down, play with the depth, and a little bit of saturation and feedback. And that's why I like having controllers with lots of control voltage sources. You can take a repeating line like an arpeggio or a sequence or a drum line and add more interest to it just with a little bit of human performance. So that's the Abstract Data ADE-10 Reactive Shaper. Again, this is one of the older wave shapers that are available in the Eurorack format, so it does things a little bit differently. Its wavefolding in particular is non-standard compared to modern wavefolders these days, but things like the saturation and these alternate pulse width modulation effects you can get out of any waveform, even a sine wave, I think makes it an interesting temporal variation to a small system.